Basically, there was someone who goes by the name Vera Atkins, who's a British intelligence officer who was second in command of the French unit. Thankfully, I pronounced her name correctly, of the Special Operations Executive, which was the British intelligence organization that reported directly to Winston Churchill during World War II. So now why am I talking about her? Because she applied a lot of the probabilistic thinking in her decision making, and she was making very, very tough decisions. So she had to evaluate an unreliable information to recruit and deploy spies. So actually, interestingly enough, a lot of spies use probabilistic thinking. So I mean, it's just an example of this being applicable here. And the way she basically was able to recruit spies for the operation was she had factors, right? She had factors of language skills, like are they able to speak French? That's going to be a very important factor in this, me deciding who I'm going to recruit. And then the other part was like confidence, like charismatic, and also like problem solving abilities. So these were like more important than other features. And so her decisions were continually being updated. So in this way, she's always looking at Bayesian thinking, always updating depending on the circumstances. So she had like probabilistic assessments, and also obviously looking at the uncertainties and dangers that can occur and the probability of that happening. And so what ended up happening was she ended up getting some people, and she sent the agents to France. And they had 3 key roles. One of them was to recruit locals and identify sabotage targets. The second was to have information and coordinate networks. And the third was like setting up wireless operators and communication equipment to be able to receive information like in a mobile state. So all of these roles were extremely dangerous. They had a lot of risk and a lot of uncertainties, little things that you wouldn't even know could go wrong. And apparently the average life expectancy for a wireless operator was like 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very risky. So this
was during World War II?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. So out of that outcome, there were 400 agents that were hired. 100 of them unfortunately got captured and killed. But I think Atkins' approach, I guess, contributed to the Allied sabotage efforts. But it sort of shows as well that probabilistic thinking, although it can obviously increase your chances of getting to success or your outcome, it doesn't guarantee 100% success. And I think obviously there's no such thing as 100% guarantee of success. So you always have to encounter like there's some room for failure. But I feel like if it wasn't for probabilistic thinking, she probably would have lost a lot more lives. Like it might have been 2-3 times much or worse. But yeah, I think it allowed her to minimize the percentage of that occurring with this probabilistic approach. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's like more of like a perspective of how it was applied in history.
Yeah. Vera Atkins, interesting name. I've never heard of that. I've learned something new today.
And also that spies use probabilistic thinking a lot.
The CIA.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think like there's a lot of risk involved in uncertainties. So
100%. I mean, you're going to sort of enemy lines and you've got to be very careful how that plays out for you. And I think that's where negative assumptions are probably more important than positive optimism because everything can go wrong. I think it also depends on the circumstance because if we look at the circumstance she was in, she was going into occupied France that was occupied by the Germans and setting up spies to feed information back. That in itself is quite risky. And I think you can't really focus on the success of that too much. You're focused on the day-to-day, getting things right and knowing that things could go wrong. As opposed to someone opening a business or entrepreneurship, for example. Someone that would go towards the entrepreneurship line would have heightened optimism because of the things they see around them. So they go on social media, they see someone's an entrepreneur, he's got a Rolex, driving a nice car, he's made it all, it's all the success stories, cool. That's the heightened optimism that you get. Is if that person can do it, I can do it as well. And I will. And then this is why social media and people that show the end story or the destination are very dangerous people because the journey of that person to that success was a lot of failures and things going wrong. And so when people start off something new, it's a very heightened optimism. I mean, for us, like we're a good example of that podcast. Like we thought, oh, everything's going to go well. First episode was not the best. I'm not going to say trash because we did our best, but it was very different to what we are now. And so, I think at that point, you can't really, the heightened optimism we had, we didn't think of things going wrong. Or starting a business, you don't really think of things going wrong. You're focused on getting things right. So I think circumstances do play a big part as well, because different circumstances will net different consequences, and different consequences will net different life lessons from that. Because the fear of death versus the fear of losing $10,000 in a business are two very different consequences.
Yeah, because one, you can't come back. And the other, you can come back.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And then, I think that is very true. Like depending on situations, we prioritize different optimism or pessimism. Definitely, yeah. But I guess like it just shows how, with this approach, you can make better decisions, which will lead to more accuracy of success.
Yep.
And it just makes it forces you to be in a frame of, I guess like pessimism in the sense like looking at things that go wrong, but also looking at like, but this can go wrong, but what's the percentage of this happening? It's like very low. Okay, maybe I shouldn't prioritize this. What's more likely to happen, which is more like
that could go wrong,
devastating. Yeah,
and then have it. Yeah,
because then I can have thousands of ideas of what can go wrong, and I can just be like, damn, like I don't want to start anything. I'm fearful of this going wrong.
Yep.
But then if I look at it and I'm like, no, there's probably like only 10 out of those 1,000 things that could happen more likely. How do I mitigate this? Now it's like, okay, now in a funny way, that pessimism becomes optimism, because it's like, instead of it becoming hundreds and thousands of things, right, it now drops to 10. And it's like, it wasn't as bad as I actually think it is. Although it's like, yeah, it can happen. But it's like, now I'm less fearful. I'm moving with more conviction and more confidence.
Because you've assessed the risks and you know what could go wrong, and you have an idea of how to approach it. Yeah.
Exactly correct. So now it's like that pessimism that which people think is like, pessimistic, negative energy, ends up becoming, I would say, powerful optimism. Where it's like now you're moving with conviction, strength, with everything what you said.
And yeah, you're moving with confidence in yourself, because I think a big part is myself for this. Sometimes you don't give 100% to something, like you could do better, and you're not as convincing about it to yourself. But I think once you have confidence and you a good strong purpose, and you're sort of unstoppable. It's about continuing that consistency.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, really good points. I think with just summarizing, probabilistic thinking helps you in decision making. You make more informed decisions, and in very complex and uncertain environments, considering the range of possible outcomes and the possibilities. And then the second part is like improving accuracy. So being able to enhance the accuracy of events and decisions that will most likely happen. This can be across every field, like medicine, in terms of finance, in terms of business, tech, everything.